Welcome dear students. Today in this first video we're going to start discussion on unit 3 cultural impact of colonialism. So the first part of discussion in this unit is colonialism and English language and literature. I hope it is already discussed what is colonialism and what are the differences between colonialism and imperialism in the previous classes. However, I'm going to start with the definition of colonialism. Colonialism is the establishment, maintenance, acquisition and expansion of colonies in one territory by people from another territory. It means the expansion of nation sovereignty over foreign territories through forcible occupation. As a result, the social structure, government and the economy of the colony are changed by the colonizers. The colonizers exploit the resources of colonies and impose their culture and language on these colonies. Portuguese, British, France, the Dutch were the major colonial powers or the colonial masters, and obviously the English were the masters of colonialism. European colonialism began in the 15th century and reached its culmination point in the late 19th century. At the height of European colonialism, more than 3/4 of the earth belonged to the European countries: Britain, France, the Netherlands, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Germany. These colonial powers were interested in increasing their own political power and exploited the colony's resources. Most of the indigenous people of colonial territory were oppressed and enslaved by the occupying power. The colonial powers, they believed that a colonized nation which adopted and admired Western culture would no longer resist the colonizers' occupation. In British colonies, for example, the colonized population had to convert to Christianity, learn the English language and read English literature in schools. Consequently, they adopted Western values and the colonizers were able to rule by consent rather than violence. Let me just come to the point. What is the position of the English language in the expansion of colonialism? English language that played a vital role in the expansion of colonial policies, colonial ideology, and the so-called colonial exploitation. Today, English is considered as a global language. The imperialism of English language is clearly seen in modern world as a result of British colonialism, which began 5 centuries ago. Moreover, the dominance of America at present also carries the status of English language forward. The imperialism of English language, because of Britain in the past and America at the present, has influenced the world remarkably. The imperialism of English language is clearly seen in modern world as a result of British colonialism. The colonial masters, they usually imposed their language on the people they colonized, forbidding natives to speak their mother tongues. In some cases, the colonizers, they systematically prohibited native languages. Many writers educated under colonization recount how students were demoted, humiliated, or even beaten for speaking their native language in the colonial schools. So when we look at the list of former European colonies, it is a rather long one. There are the so-called countries such as Australia and Canada, the non-settler countries such as India, Jamaica, Nigeria, Senegal, and Sri Lanka, and the countries like South Africa and Zimbabwe, which were partially settled by the colonial population. These countries were influenced by European colonialism in terms of language and literature. So when we look at the condition of India, in the 16th century, European powers began to occupy the Indian subcontinent, mainly the Portugal, the Netherlands, France, and England. So the period between the 1756 and 1757 The British East India Company or the English East India Company was founded, and later they expanded their supremacy over India. English language was introduced in Indian subcontinent for administration, for business purposes, for educational purposes, and the so-called trade purposes. Concerning the integration of Western values in Indian culture, it is conspicuous that the British influence is still omnipresent in the Asian subcontinent. The reason for this can also be found in the persistence of English language. Many Indians, they were conversant with the English language, and because of the British colonists intended to export their values and culture by teaching the Indian population their language. The British colonialism had impact on Indian literature and education. Indian writers, they began to write poetry, short stories, and novels in English. The great writers Rabindranath Tagore, R.K. Narayanan, Salman Rushdie, they wrote poetry and novels in English and won the hearts of people at international level. So English was introduced in schools and colleges as second language, but now it has become a medium of instruction. English language was introduced in the major part of Africa. Later, the countries followed English language became very powerful countries because they had relation with the Britain, America, and Indian subcontinent, and they used technology, science, medicine, education system of Western people. Now, other countries in Africa, ruled by France, Germany, Spain, are also following the English language in education, trade, business, or any other purposes. So in this way, Africa had an impact on the Western colonialism or the European colonialism. In the modern world, the countries like South Africa, Nigeria, and Zimbabwe, they have adopted the English as their own language. Just like that of Africa and the Indian subcontinent, the Caribbean island and the South American colonies, they were also influenced by the European colonialism. In British colonies, English language was introduced in education, administration, etc. America, Australia, Canada had the same impact of colonialism, and finally they adopted English language as their mother tongue. In Asian continent, the British colonialism had deep impact on Indian subcontinent. The British changed the economy, so with the expansion of their colonial ideology. So there is a great demand of English medium education in Indian subcontinent and in the African subcontinent. So the British colonialism spread English across the globe, and America is just trying to impose English on the world with its modern imperialism today. So this is called English linguistic imperialism. So no doubt that the English language was a tool for the expansion of colonialism, the colonial policies, the colonial ideology, and the so-called colonial exploitation. So through the language, the British could master the world and exploited the economy of different countries of the world. So this is how the English used as a tool for the expansion of colonial ideology and colonial practices. So in the next class, we will be talking on how the British introduced English education in different parts of the world, particularly in India. Thank you for listening.